53 miles of shelving, 600 years of documents, one word that changed everything. Secret. But that's not what it means. The Vatican played a linguistic trick, and the world fell for it. Behind those walls isn't conspiracy. It's something more dangerous. Bureaucratic control of historical narrative and the access system designed to keep you out. 1. Secretum Archivum Vaticanum. That's what they called it in 1612 when Pope Paul V formalized the papal archive. Every documentary, every conspiracy video, every breathless article translates secretum as secret, hidden, forbidden. But in Latin legal terminology, secretum means private, personal, belonging to the pontiff. Not concealed from the world, reserved for official use. The distinction matters, because the entire mythology of the Vatican archive rests on a mistranslation that the Church never bothered to correct. Why would they? Mystery drives pilgrimage, drives donations, drives power. The archive became a symbol before anyone actually knew what was inside. 53 miles of shelving. That's not metaphor. That's the actual linear measurement of document storage. Hundreds of thousands of files, papal bulls, diplomatic correspondence, financial records, trial transcripts, letters from kings begging for annulments, reports from inquisitors, tax ledgers from monasteries. Most of it is staggeringly boring. But the bureaucratic apparatus that controls access to that boredom is where the real story lives. Because if you can't get in to verify what isn't there, then the myth survives. And myths are more valuable than facts. 2. The archive's origins predate its official founding by centuries. As early as the 8th century, papal clerks were collecting documents, storing them scattered across Rome, some in the Lateran Palace, some in St. Peter's Basilica. No central system, no catalog. Just boxes and chests of parchment moved from room to room as popes died and new ones took power. Then came the Avignon papacy, 1305 to 1378. The entire papal court relocated to France, and they took the documents with them. Wagon trains full of charters and letters, moving through medieval Europe. Bandits raided some convoys. Documents scattered, lost. This is where the first whispers started. What was in those missing crates? Proof of heresy? Deals with monarchs? Evidence of things the Church wanted forgotten? The truth is, probably tax records and routine correspondence. But absence creates narrative. And the narrative became that something important vanished during the Avignon years. Then Napoleon. 1798. French forces occupy Rome. Napoleon orders the entire papal archive transported to Paris. He wants to control not just territory, but history itself. Wagons roll across the Alps. Thousands of documents. Some are damaged in transit. Some are lost. After Napoleon's defeat, France agrees to return the archive, but there's no budget for transport. So they sell some of it, by weight, as raw material. Parchment gets pulped, sold to shopkeepers for wrapping. There are stories of French peasants using papal documents to wrap cheese. Red wax seals and all, this isn't myth, it's documented. And it means we will never know what was destroyed, which creates the perfect conditions for conspiracy. If you can't prove what was lost, you can claim anything was lost. 3. 1881. Pope Leo XIII does something unexpected. He opens the archive to scholars, not fully, not freely, but selectively. Researchers from different countries and confessions can apply for access. The Church frames this as transparency, a willingness to let history speak for itself. But look at the mechanism. You need a letter of recommendation from a recognized academic institution. You must specify exactly what you're researching, which time period, which figures. You submit requests in advance. An archivist retrieves the files. You don't browse. You don't wander the stacks. You sit in a reading room and examine what they bring you. The language barrier is another filter. Most documents are in medieval Latin, Church Latin, legal Latin, or Italian, or French, or German. If you can't read those languages fluently, you're locked out. And the archive has no obligation to translate. This isn't censorship in the traditional sense. It's structural inaccessibility. The truth is available, technically, but the system ensures only a narrow class of specialists can actually engage with it. And specialists are invested in the institution. They need access to continue their careers, which creates a subtle pressure to avoid rocking the boat. You find what you find. But you frame it carefully, because if you burn bridges, you lose access. And losing access means losing your livelihood. 4. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. The Vatican archives hold documents related to World War II. Specifically, Pope Pius XII's papacy, 1939 to 1958. For decades, those files were sealed, officially to protect living individuals. But the opacity created speculation. What did Pius know about the Holocaust? When did he know it? Did the Vatican help Nazi war criminals escape to South America? The so-called rat lines. There are documented cases of Catholic clergy providing false papers and transport to fleeing fascists. The question is, how high up the chain that operation went, and whether the Vatican archives contain correspondence that would clarify the role of church leadership. In 2020, the Vatican finally opened Pius XII's files to researchers. Millions of pages, and the findings are mixed. Some researchers argue the documents show Pius tried to help Jews quietly through back channels. Others say the diplomatic language is so cautious it amounts to complicity. The files don't resolve the debate. They complicate it, which is actually more interesting. Because it shows that even with access, the truth isn't simple. History isn't a clean narrative. It's fragments, contradictions, silences. And those silences often matter more than what was written down. 5. You can't talk about the Vatican archive without mentioning the chronovisor. Allegedly invented by Father Pellegrino Maria Ernetti in the 1950s. Supposedly a device that could view past events, see history as it happened. Ernetti claimed to have witnessed the crucifixion of Christ. He even produced a photograph. Grainy, unconvincing, later debunked as a postcard image. But the story refuses to die. Why? Because Ernetti was a real person, a Benedictine monk, a respected scholar. And he insisted until his death that the chronovisor was real, that the Vatican had seized it, that its blueprints and prototypes were locked in the archive. There's no evidence for any of this. But the Vatican has never issued an official denial, which feeds speculation. Then there's the alien contact theory, the hidden gospels, the demon skeletons. All products of novels and documentaries, not history. But they shape how millions of people perceive the archive, and the Church allows it. Because mystery is useful. It keeps people talking, keeps the Vatican relevant in an increasingly secular world. The actual contents of the archive are far less dramatic. Financial records, monastic inventories, correspondence about church politics. But that's not what sells books. 6. Occasionally, something genuinely significant emerges. In 2007, researchers published the Chinon Parchment, a document showing that Pope Clement V had actually absolved the Knights Templar of heresy charges. The order was destroyed by King Philip IV of France for political reasons, not theological ones. The parchment had been misfiled for centuries, just sitting there. Another example. Inquisition records. For years, the popular image of the Inquisition was based on Protestant propaganda and Gothic novels. Then researchers started accessing the actual trial transcripts. And the picture that emerged was more complex. Yes, there was torture. Yes, there were executions. But there was also bureaucracy, rules of evidence, appeals processes. The Inquisition wasn't an efficient killing machine. It was a slow, grinding legal system, which makes it more horrifying in some ways, because it was rational, methodical, documented. These discoveries don't exonerate the Church. They complicate it, which is what real history does. So how do you actually get in? First, you need institutional backing, a university, a research institute, someone vouches for you. Then you submit a detailed research proposal. What are you looking for? Why? What time period? You can't just say, I want to browse. Doesn't work. Once approved, you travel to Rome. You enter through a guarded gate. Swiss guard checks your credentials. You pass through multiple checkpoints, metal detectors, ID verification. You reach the reading room. Quiet, climate controlled. You fill out request forms. Archivists retrieve specific documents. You examine them under supervision. No photography without permission. No removal of materials, no wandering. This isn't a library, it's a controlled information dispensary. and large sections remain closed. Anything from the last 75 years is typically sealed, officially to protect privacy. But it also means the most politically sensitive modern material is inaccessible, which means we don't know what we don't know. And that uncertainty is the real secret. 8. In 2020, the Vatican officially changed the name. Secretum became Apostolic. Apostolic Vatican Archive. The goal was to reduce conspiracy thinking, to emphasize the scholarly nature of the institution. They launched digitization projects, put some documents online, organized exhibitions, tried to position themselves as transparent. But here's the reality. The name change doesn't change the access system. It doesn't open the sealed sections. It doesn't eliminate the recommendation requirements or the language barriers. It's a PR move. And a smart one, because it lets them claim openness while maintaining control. The sign on the door changed, the locks did not. 9. So what's really in there? 3 layers. First, the real secrets. Politically sensitive documents that could embarrass living people or destabilize diplomatic relationships. Those exist. They're boring, but real. Second, the structural secret. The complexity of access, the linguistic barriers, the institutional gatekeeping. Most people will never get in, not because the content is forbidden, because the system is designed for specialists. Third, the mythological secret, the legends, the chronovisor, the aliens, the forbidden gospels. None of that is real, but it serves a function. It keeps the Vatican in the cultural conversation and allows them to control historical narrative by controlling who gets to verify what isn't there. That's the real power, not what they hide, but who they allow to look.